Nacho man, yeah. I got to be a Nacho man. Got to be a Nacho man. I got to be a Nacho man.
I'm making this series both because I'm having fun and to illustrate how much creative freedom we have for roleplay in Fallout 76. This video is chapter 1 of my profile for my character Nacho in Fallout 76. This is actually the second video in the series. If you'd like to start from the beginning, I'll link to the prologue in the description below. In that video, I tell the tale of how two desperate immigrants arrive in Ponca City, Oklahoma, under the assumed names of Frank and Rose Sanders. We take up the story shortly after their only child, Nathan, is born. All dates and world events are taken from the timeline available in the Fallout Wiki. I hope you enjoy my excursion into creative writing. Please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Shortly after Nathan is born in 2052, the Ponca City oil refinery is shut down. There is simply no more oil to refine. Most of the equipment is abandoned in place. With the parent company bankrupt, there is no money for environmental cleanup. Frank begins a dangerous career salvaging parts, steel, and what oil remains in the refinery. The men he works with are, like him, societal outsiders. They are mostly reformed felons with no other way to make money. As the more valuable equipment at the refinery is sold and scrapped, Frank's wages decline. He doesn't have other options, though. His identification papers won't stand up to much scrutiny, and he doesn't dare look for other work for fear of getting deported or worse. Shortly after Nathan starts school, Rose is able to find a job at the local library. The head librarian is another member of the Catholic Church, the same parish as the priest who sheltered Frank and Rose. She chooses to overlook the irregularities in Rose's papers. Being a librarian doesn't pay much, but it's a vital supplement to their income. And since it's a government job, it has a health insurance benefit. Money is still tight, but Frank and Rose are now among the American middle class. Nathan's childhood is largely uneventful. He is a shy boy. He enjoys playing sports, but he's no star player. His high perception and agility allow him to at least compete at games that require short bursts of speed like American football and baseball. But his low endurance means he is poor at sports like long-distance running, basketball, and soccer. During the school year, Nathan spends his after-school hours with his mom at the library. He likes to read science fiction and fantasy novels. He also develops a lifelong love of learning and a respect for knowledge. The story of the burning of the library at Alexandria in Egypt by the Romans has a particular impact on him. He sees that lost knowledge as the heritage of mankind. He likes to imagine, what would have happened if the library had been saved? Would Europe have avoided the Dark Ages? What would have happened if the Enlightenment or the Renaissance had begun centuries sooner with far more scientific knowledge? Would mankind have already begun the long journey to the stars? Questions with no real answers. But Nathan's speculation makes him see his mother's humble position at a small-town library as a noble occupation. During the summers, Nathan joins his father at Frank's scavenging job at the defunct refinery. Despite the somewhat shady nature of the work and his dad's co-workers, Nathan has a surprisingly good time. He learns about how to take things apart and develops an innate mechanical ability. The skills he gains ultimately save Nathan's life when selections are made for Vault 76. The Sanders life is almost idyllic in tiny Ponca City, but the world outside the family's small bubble continues to spiral out of control. The United Nations was disbanded days after Nathan's birth, and the resource wars in Europe grind on and on. The new plague strikes much of the country, though Ponca City is largely spared due to its isolation. A limited nuclear exchange happens in the Middle East in 2054. In response, the United States government begins Project Safe House in an unprecedented civil construction effort. The company Vault-Tec is contracted to build vaults against the looming threat of global nuclear war. In public, the vaults are advertised as a final refuge against Armageddon. In private, a secret cabal known as the Enclave has sinister goals beyond the simple preservation of the species. By 2060, traffic comes to a halt on all the world's streets. Oil has become too precious to burn in cars. What traces of oil remain at the Ponca City refinery are now incredibly valuable. The few bits of good news that come to Oklahoma are always saddled with even worse outcomes. The 2060 Olympics are held, though at the time, no one realizes that they are the last. The European resource wars finally end, since the contested oil fields have run dry. Unfortunately, this also signals the end of most European powers, and Europe descends into anarchy. By 2066, the news on television is all bad. The new plague ravages the population. A reactor melts down in upstate New York due to increased demand. As oil dries up worldwide, China's situation becomes critical. By June, talks between the US and China have broken down. The US president storms out of the negotiations, vowing that America alone will use what oil remains. In December, the Chinese invade Anchorage, Alaska, hoping to secure the world's last known oil reserve. As the world news gets worse, Frank, Rose, and Nathan do the best they can to keep their heads down. Like so many Americans, they would rather think of those events as distant, with no real impact on them and their pursuit of the American dream. A car in every driveway and picket fences all around. Unfortunately for the Sanders family, they are about to receive a rude awakening. Stay tuned for Chapter 2, Nathan Goes to College. Thanks for watching.